Hey everyone, I pulled on Graph yesterday. You probably saw my polls. They went okay-ish. But today we're reviewing Graph and I have a special guest with me because he also pulled Graph on the JP server. It's Sinzar.
What's up, guys? Hopefully, everyone has good luck pulling for Graph, and Liv's about to tell you how good he is.
Exactly. And Sinzar will always, or hopefully always, chime in with his opinion on Graph. And let's do this review. It's my first time doing a collab on a review, so let's see how this one goes. So as always, we are looking at a brief overview of Graph, what he does, what he doesn't do. So he is in space form, which is kind of funny as he doesn't have really that many chain abilities or abilities in general that do anything. He's an LB chainer. His LB is slightly doing damage. We'll get to that in a minute. And his Brave Shift, that's what it's all about, where he shifts into his Alpha Weltall form, where he really does cool things. So, the abilities. As you can see, he has a lot. Basically, Regina 2.0, as I would say, just without the killers. I can and probably should zoom in a bit so we can move through this. He wasn't buffed like Hawkeye, which I feel like is kind of eh. What do you say, Sinzar? The guided shot X, it's just an 80% defense reduction for one turn. It feels kind of meh, doesn't it?
Is that from his base form?
Yeah, it's in a base form.
Oh, I gotta be completely honest here. Like, other than like equipping maybe Calamity Border or something, I have never touched his base form. I have no idea what it
Really?
does. Oh yeah, like his base form is for preparing his mod boost and getting
Oh.
dispelled, and then I go to the shift form. Like, I don't even know what his base form does.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the base form and the ship form, they share the same modifier boost, right? So yeah, it would seem so, right? It does.
Yeah, the base form's a really good place to spend your early turns, where you do the imbues. You're gonna then dispel later because you can, like, for example, if you don't use Roka and you're not bursting until turn 3 anyway, you can like do the imbues on turn 1. He can self Rage Beast Roar in the base form on turn 2, and then
Hmm.
turn 3 he can be good to go with the shift and then burst.
Yeah, exactly. So the imbues you mentioned are he imbues himself with water and earth. And if those are not the particular elements the boss requires you to use, well, you can use Rage Beast Roar, like Since just mentioned. And the cool thing about him is innate quintuple cast, unique selection only. If you've used Regina beforehand, that's exactly how it works. So you can pick the stat modifiers 100x each, but they only last one turn, so those are not for you to use in the base form. Those are strictly or best used in the Brave Shift. Now, on the passive side of things, EX plus 3 unlocks 500 static attack. EX plus 1, not EX plus 2. Please be mindful of that. Unlocks the outer LB at the start of the battle. That was the word I was looking for. Other than that, nothing too fancy. Like since I just mentioned, you won't ever use the base form to do anything other than imbuing and dispelling himself. So the base LB, like I mentioned earlier, it's a chaining ability, has 9 hits. Is it actually? You never used it, right? So you wouldn't know whether this actually chains or?
I couldn't tell you. I have used it a few times, like you said, for the Imperil. So it is like okay for utility if he's being like completely self-sufficient and no one else is doing that. You can use it for that. But as far as the frames, I have no idea.
Yeah, I guess nobody will ever really try this. Don't try this at home. So, the Brave Shift, that's what it's all about with Graph. And I put the selection of equipment that he can use, and it's rather unique as he cannot wear anything. So, you might have noticed nobody uses any weapons, nobody uses any clothes or helmets or hats for that matter on Graph because he technically can't. He is not in his human form, he is in his huge mech where he cannot wear all these things other than the necessary accessories. So, on the ability side of things, more of the same. However, he does gain Two abilities that are new. One EX plus 2 ability, Hyper Mode, which only really boosts his LB, which you're never gonna use in the Brave Shift, because it is all about the Day of the Collapse, which is a triple single hit ability that hits very hard after you spend your modifiers, because these modifiers, as you can see, they are still the same as before. And like Sinzar mentioned, you power him up with these 25x 4-turn modifiers. So the Earth element, I am Grahf, the Seeker of Power, as well as, where's the other one? Dove Desire, the Power, which is the Earth element. You dispel those. And on your burst turn, you would pick you pick 4 modifier boosts and the burst. That's it. And if you want to speed things up, pick Roka and do it on turn 2. But you kind of have to dispel him first. And that's pretty much it, right? I didn't miss anything, did I?
Yeah, that's basically it. He doesn't really have any kind of like support or utility or any relevant chaining. He is just there for that big burst. And while he is primarily like a one-time finisher, like for Dark Visions, he actually is pretty good in a few of the upcoming trials as well. Now, for those like you mentioned, Roka, like you really, really want Roka on the team to fully utilize Grahf as a trial DPS, but he is very good for that for a few of the upcomers. What's the Dullahan trial? He can actually OTK the Dullahan trial, so that one's not. You don't really need Roker for that. But the one after that, Death Machine, he's actually really good for the easy mode, which is it's called easy mode, but it's actually still pretty hard to get the turn count mission, because that's when trials just get insane. And Grahf is really good for doing the turn count mission on easy mode Death Machine, which is, I guess we should call it normal mode and then insane mode from now on.
That sounds good. The Dullahan trial, that is an undead boss, or what kind of race is he? Or it?
Yeah, based on the time of this video for global, Dullahan should be our next one, and yeah, it's undead. That one, unfortunately, is still very, very easy, like Stroper and Archaeobavius. So it's a joke, really. But Grahf is one of the best choices for it.
That sounds good. So I'm probably going to end up using Grahf for that one. Right, and on the passive side of things, 2 things I'd like to mention here. One is the Chain Mastery, which increases the chain modifier cap by only 100%. So you gotta use either of the 2. You either use SOS Lightning's STMR, the Indestructible Light, or you put equip Helm or equip Clothes with the Clash, Clothes or Helmet, respectively, on him. Both are viable options, but truth be told, you are probably never gonna use the Clash Clothes or the Helmet on Grahf, because there's better targets for those. Mainly Lara, Sky, or maybe True Double Hand Curtain for that matter. But the big selling point of Grahf is the Omega 100 passive, which increases attack percentage by 1000 if he's unarmed. And basically, he is or always will be unarmed. And that actually is what makes his attack value skyrocket that much. And we'll see that in a later slide where I show off his build. So the LB, pretty much, yeah, nothing to really say. 200x modifier, doesn't hit that hard. We have 350s already, and better ones. Knights of Grandchild, they have 370 even, are coming rather soon-ish.
Yeah, one thing to point out is his shift form LB, assuming like you are using him as a trial DPS and you just don't own Roka, like that's just not an option for you at all. This can be used as a filler, because with his EX2 buff, it does go to, I think, 280 in total.
Oh yeah.
So it's like usable. It's obviously way worse than his cooldown, but like, if on turn 3 you do the cooldown, well, instead of like just standing around doing nothing on turns 4 and 5, you could like do the cooldown, do the mod boost on turn 4, and then like LB turn 5, and then turn 6, you got that good cooldown again. The boss isn't dead yet.
Oh, right. Or if you're missing or lacking any Earth Imperil unit, you could also use his LBE on turn 2 for, say, an Earth Imperil. It's the 130.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
All right, now let's talk about the TMR and STMR. Things are getting spicy. The TMR is a materia that can only be really used by Xenogears units, 500 static attack, and the Grahf one yields 100 human killer. The one from it, same thing, but Machina killer, right? It should be Machina, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure, yes. And the static attack does stack on Graph, one of
Yes.
each maximum. It does not stack with itself.
Exactly, that's what I want to point out right now. You sadly cannot wear two Graph TMRs on him, but you can, like since I mentioned, stack its and Graph's TMR on each other, and that yields 1000 static attack next to the vision card, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So all in all, the evaluation on the TMR, it's great on Xenogears units, but doesn't do anything on anyone else. So too bad. The head, the STMR on the other hand, that is really, really good. 60 attack, still not higher than that, but I guess it's whatever. The real kicker here is the 50% LB damage. The 100 LB gauge fill rate is a nice bonus, but I feel like the 50 LB gauge, the 50 LB damage is really what sells this STMR. It's highly valuable for all those LB finishers. Sky comes to mind. And I'm drawing a blank. Probably Tifa. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little strange on global because we have the Clash of Wills helm, which
Yeah.
on the JP server, this helm was just amazing across the board because there was no better option. On global, it's a little trickier. But for example, this is like good on all the premiums if someone else has already stolen the Clash hat. So for example, if you've got like Arin plus Tifa on the same team, or like Tyvus, etc., then one of them is going to be using the Clash helm, but everyone else would love a copy of this hat.
Exactly. And from my point of view, I'd say if you are going deep on Graph, you ideally want two or three of these STMRs. Or what's your opinion on this? Because people like to have values on or numbers on how many of these STMRs to get, I guess.
My opinion, if it was a permanent unit, I would say two is fine, and then maybe you could like get more later if something comes up. Because it's like a now or never thing. If I pulled, I guess, four Graph, would I Moogle three of them before sharding? That means you'd have four in total. That might be too much. So if you pulled three, would I Moogle the two extras? I probably would. Two STMR Moogles for a limited unit. I'd probably do it, and then you get the one free from the base copy at
Yeah.
EX2. So I guess three would probably be in the. I don't think four will ever really become into play because we have the Clash of Wilhelms helm too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm probably never going to use more than 4 DPS. It's most Clash trials or Clash bosses require a tank lately and some form of supporter like Kresnik. So yeah, it's essentially 4 DPS, and not necessarily all of them are physical DPS. Some people still use Tiana, like me. All right. Yeah, but truth be told, I got two STMRs. My main Graph, who's EX plus 2, doesn't have his STMR claimed, so I have the option to go for 3, but I myself have 2, for example. So should be fine, like since I mentioned having 2 and the option for a third one. All right, and the vision card. I feel like the vision card is pretty bland. Truth be told, it's a 100 attack one, 50% attack passive, 25 LB, 500 static attack. I feel like it's really just a Xenogears card and not really usable by anyone, or not good on anyone else, just because the base attack is so low. I'd rather slap a premium card or one of the 110 or Link's 115 vision card on anyone if it's for the attack stat. That's my opinion, honestly.
Yeah, this card is really not going to see use on pretty much anyone except the Xenogears units. For like the Mega Super Omega whales out there, in the future, Graph would actually rather use Knights of Grandshell card because it's going to give him a lot more attack because of the base, and that base is multiplied by that 1000% passive, and it still gets the 500 flat because that's what Knights of Grandshell card does. But you would really want to have like multiple copies of that card. So this is like only the 0.1% of high end players for that to matter. every other time he's going to be using this card.
Okay, that's good to know. I probably will end up with max one Knights of Grandchild card, and that's gonna be it because I can't afford to get two of those. That's a little bit deep for my pockets. And it feels like Grahf is already a semi premium unit with the banner structure and all, so yeah.
Oh yes, indeed. He has been overvalued in Global's eyes by the developers.
Oh yeah. And now let's get to the nitty gritty stuff, the damage calculations and the damage results, builds, etc. As always, this is a lot of text. If you want to read through it, I'd suggest pausing the video for a second and go through all of this in detail. And we are moving on to the Grahf builds. Now I picked out two. Sinzar greatly helped me building these, so we do have a very optimal build, I'd say. Now please be mindful that we are using Allah for all time, which is not his own vision card because the vision card just wasn't available on the builder at the time of making this video. The calculations or the damage results you're about to see, they are with his own vision card in mind. This one though allows him to wear or have 300 Demon Killer, which is rather nice. It has on both builds the 6x damage cap. And yeah, he is going to reach rather high values. In fact, fully buffed on this very build, as you can see, he reaches a 14,211 attack, which is crazy. This always includes a 400% stat buff, but that's widely available with Arif these days. So yeah, as you can see, he sits rather highly above Sephiroth, which may not be surprising to many, but I still found it rather interesting. This is obviously assuming that he is on a dark team with Yuna, who buffs the dark field via Anima. But still, it's an amazing unit to have, with super high damage output. And please keep in mind that both Tivus and Avalanche Tifa have really optimal builds. So this sheet may not reflect reality as it stands because Tivus has full support. He has that Fire Imperil field from Lena. He has the best possible support with Luis's Fire field for the own side. So yeah, it's kind of skewed towards Tivus. And Tifa is using her best in slot build for true double hand with her best killers in mind. So technically speaking, Grahf could be easily at rank 1. And I think your damage sheet has Grahf at rank 1 even, right? Or was it Tifa still?
No, I think Grahf is actually slightly higher at this point. That's assuming your little bullet points at the bottom really point out the problems with Grahf. But when you just baseline before taking killers into account, Grahf is great because his attack power is so excessive, and it's really good. But just like your bullet points say, after the variance patch or after gearing for dual races, Grahf really starts to lose that #1 slot to other units that gear easier.
Yeah, and just to move back one slide, the gearing issues for dual race stem from the fact that he has to wear both TMRs, his own and the one from it, and either equip Clothes, equip Helm, or Indestructible Light, which leaves you at exactly one single materia slot to do killers. Obviously, there's still 2 accessory slots, but it's getting tricky because not that many accessory slots provide killers. There's just a bunch, like STMR from Sky comes to mind. We have Flame of Vengeance, Edward Boots. There is Photon Core and a few others that I'm forgetting right now, but there aren't that many, and that's just a huge issue for Grahf in general, and especially for dual races, which are rather common in Clash of Wills, for example. It's going to be a very hard sell for Grahf in general.
Yeah, just for memory, the previous Clash of Wills, the Arboralis, it was Plant Spirit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the combo?
No, wasn't it Aquatics and Plant?
I'm sorry. Aquatic and Plant. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. Like Aquatic and Plant, neither one of them have killers with attack power percent. Because one other problem Grahf a little bit suffers by is percent attack power.
Right.
He's only getting 50 from his vision card, and he needs 50 more to cap out. And his TMRs and the id TMRs don't give any. So you kind of need 50% more. So he's just really tricky to gear, especially for some of the more obscure races.
Exactly. And I think this build doesn't even have the full 1400 attack that he could have. So that is another thing to keep in mind. So it's really dependent on the races. Mainly human and machina bosses are what he prefers and where he excels at. Alright, so how does he fare in the meta? Well, lots of things have been talked about already. I just want to reiterate that he has a great and STMR that is usable by every or most physical DPS. He is the strongest non-LB finisher by a landslide, and that will remain until next week, right? When we will potentially get Kain. He's the next one waiting in line, technically speaking, by the JP schedule, and Kain should be really strong. He's a Dragoon, isn't he? And we're not using his LB, right?
Yeah, Kain is a jumper Dragoon, correct. Kain does need the variance patch to pass up Grahf, but once that variance patch comes in, yeah, Kain jumps into the #1 DPS slot, even above Grahf.
Exactly. So another thing is, since I already mentioned the variance change, Grahf will still remain relevant post-variance change with the asterisks, unless Gumi shakes up the meta with global exclusive cow units. We haven't seen a huge shakeup lately. Neither Tiana nor Chao really changed the whole scheme of meta DPS. But who knows? I mean, maybe it's another Lara Croft coming. Who knows what they have in store for us? I'm just not hoping for a huge spike anymore. It's been enough, I feel like. But one thing that stands out with Grahf is his elemental flexibility. Like both Sinzar and I mentioned, you can dispel him if you don't like the water and earth imbue, and imbue him with whatever you like. And that really is something that we're not seeing with the upcoming units. Like Kain is locked to light, isn't he? Knights of Grandshot are also locked to light, for example. So that's going to be a recurring theme. We're not getting that elemental flexibility going forward that often.
Yeah, pretty much all the units from JP, just about. There might be like one or two exceptions, but it's rare. But yeah, just about all the JP upcoming units are either soft or hard locked into like one, maybe two elements sometimes.
Right, and like we mentioned just a few minutes ago, that Grahf tremendously suffers against dual race bosses that he's not innately strong against, and the limited gearing options will thus make him hardly usable in Clash of Wills, although one could argue just stay in base all week until you finish the boss. Yeah, but still, I mean, with the 50% threshold, Grahf is highly likely to die from just the smallest breeze coming at him once the threshold is pushed and the boss does very nasty things.
Yeah, and assuming the boss, even if the boss doesn't attack you, Grahf is, again, completely reliant on his cooldown for damage. So even if you do burst on, like, let's say, turn 5 for your big burst turn, and then, turn 6, it's time to finish off the boss, well, Grahf just can't do anything.
Yeah, he's just standing there and cheering on the other team members. All right, so yeah, should you pull? I mean, in my opinion, this whole banner is a scam, and he's sold at premium value without actually being a premium unit, or almost premium value, one should say. It's still not 60k for the pity, but it is pretty close, because technically speaking, everyone's forced to buy the 5000 Lapis shard bundle, because we're not getting any shards anywhere other than VIP, and the 30 useless shards from login rewards. Whoever thought that was a good idea. So, yeah, I mean, my verdict would be only really pull if you love Xenogears or want to stay competitive in Dark Visions or Vision World. Well, Vision World is capable for the most part, but Dark Visions, if you're aiming for the top 100 or better score, you probably should get Grahf, because he may or may not be on most teams going forward. So my best advice is either skip entirely or use tickets, unless you're a huge fan of the series. Then by all means go for it. But always keep in mind, never Lapis pull if you cannot afford to pity. That is the most important advice we all can give you, because you will get screwed on this banner. Guaranteed. So what's your verdict?
It's pretty much exactly like you say. If you're the kind of player that is hyper competitive in dark visions and you're always fighting for that top 100 slot, Grahf is pretty much a must-have, because he is gonna be, for like a minimum of 3 or 4 months, he's gonna be on every single like rank 1 to 100 team, and if you don't have him, you're just not gonna be able to compete. And even though some units are coming that are stronger, like Kane and such, you're going to use Kane plus Grahf on those top teams. So yeah, like if you're a try hard in dark visions, you got to have Grahf. You just got to have them. If you're happy with like top 500 and you mostly care about Clash of Wills, then Grahf is a very safe skip. Like it really just depends. If you're going for that bleeding edge dark visions, go for it. If you want just an overall general powerful unit, Grahf is really good. But otherwise, he is incredibly expensive, and this banner was nerfed into the ground, so it's hard to recommend if you're not one of those kind of players.
Exactly. And yeah, that is pretty much it for today. So that was a lengthy one, but I think Grahf warrants a longer video because he still is a great unit. So thank you very much, not only for watching, but also being here with me today, Sinzar. I always am happy to have you with me, and happy to talk with you about the latest and greatest units.
Thanks for inviting me. It was fun. It was fun to chat about Grahf.
All right, so we'll see each other tomorrow for my 8 review, and that is it. So keep tabs on my videos, keep tabs on Sin's videos. We still have a few things brewing, I guess. Or you already did your budget runs, didn't you?
I did, but I posted the budget runs, and then like right away, already people, but I don't have the unit you use. Who can I use instead? So I'll probably make a few more over the course of the week. Because really, this week is like a dead week. After the first day, like there's nothing else to do the rest of the week. So.
Yep, and I have a few neat ideas, but you took away my conch idea for the first one, so now I have to use
Kryla. Oh no! There's not many dark imbues in the game. There really isn't.
Yeah, so I gotta use my X+3 Kryla, and I can already see people asking what can I use instead. But I then can say, check out Sin's videos. Alright, but that's it from us. Thank you all for watching. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye bye.
Later.